You found the webbing first, then the small white worms in the flour, then the moths, small, buff-colored, flying from the pantry shelf. You threw out $60 of food. You called the pest control company. The technician sealed your pantry, applied a fumigant, told you to restock with airtight containers, and charged $312. 6 weeks later, you opened a new bag of rice and found larvae at the seam fold. The technician called it reinfestation. The accurate word is different. It is emergence, because the larvae in your new rice bag were not introduced by anything you did after the fumigation. Those eggs were in the bag when you bought it, at the packaging facility, within the legally permitted tolerance standard that the grain industry sets for itself and prints nowhere on the package. I'll show you that tolerance number at the 3-minute mark. The fumigation product applied to your pantry is a pyrethrin aerosol or a dichlorvos strip. At commercial bulk pricing and licensed application labor, $41.09 per pantry service. Their charge, $312. Margin, 660%. On a service that eliminates what's present in your pantry on the day of treatment, not what arrives in the next bag of grain you bring home. Here is the number that explains the return larvae. The FDA defect action level for wheat flour, the federal standard that defines the maximum permissible insect contamination before a product is considered adulterated, is 75 insect fragments per 50 grams. Not 0. 75. For whole wheat flour, the standard permits an average of 150 insect fragments per 50 grams before the FDA considers enforcement action. These are not packaging failures. They are the legal lower bound of an industry that produces grain at industrial scale. The grain is dried, milled, and packaged at facilities where insects are endemic in the grain stream. The tolerance standard acknowledges that zero contamination is not achievable at commercial scale. The packaging facility meets the standard. The larvae that hatch in your kitchen 6 weeks later do so from eggs that arrived inside the legal threshold. The fumigation company treats the symptom, the insects present in your pantry at the time of service. It has no mechanism for addressing eggs deposited inside sealed packages before you purchased them. The pantry moth. Plodia interpunctella, the Indian meal moth, lays eggs in grain and dried food products. Eggs are invisible to the naked eye. They survive storage conditions at room temperature. They hatch when temperature rises above 50 degrees Fahrenheit and humidity exceeds 40%. Here is why bay leaves work, and why this is olfactory receptor chemistry, not a kitchen myth. The Indian meal moth navigates to grain and dried food sources through olfactory receptor neurons in its antennae, specifically the OR22A receptor protein, which responds to the volatile aldehyde and ester compounds released by stored grain products. These volatiles, hexanal, nonanal, and related aldehydes, are the olfactory signature that tells a moth that grain is present and available for egg deposition. Bay laurel leaves, Laurus nobilis, contain 1,8 cineol, also called eucalyptol, as their primary volatile compound, constituting 27 to 45% of the essential oil fraction. When 1,8 cineol is present in the air surrounding a grain storage area, it binds to the OR22A receptor protein in the moth's antennae at a higher affinity than the grain aldehyde compounds. The receptor is occupied. The moth cannot detect the grain volatile signal. Without a detectable grain signal, the moth does not land on the surface. Without landing, it does not deposit eggs. This was documented in the USDA Bureau of Entomology and Plant Quarantine Technical Bulletin in 1943. Specifically in the context of grain warehouse management. It was in use on merchant ships carrying grain cargo during World War II. Now here's where the mechanism reveals something the fumigation industry cannot address. The bay leaf does not kill the moth. It prevents oviposition, egg deposition. The distinction matters because a fumigation treatment kills adults and larvae present at the time of application. The bay leaf protocol prevents the next round of eggs from ever being deposited, regardless of what arrives in new packaging. One is a reset. The other prevents the event. Stop. One timeline before we continue. 1943. USDA Bureau of Entomology documents 1,8-cineol as an effective oviposition deterrent for Plodia interpunctella in grain storage applications. 1947. USDA updates grain warehouse management guidelines to include aromatic herb compounds as supplemental deterrents for stored grain moths. 2024. Every major pest control franchise that offers pantry pest treatment applies pyrethrin aerosol and recommends airtight containers. Zero franchise service protocols include bay laurel placement as an oviposition deterrent. 81 years. The documentation has been in the USDA technical literature for 81 years. It has not migrated to a single retail pest control product label, a single franchise service protocol, or a single service technician's recommendation. The reason is structurally identical to every other compound in this series. A dried bay leaf cannot be patented, cannot be delivered by a licensed applicator, costs 67 cents per shelf per year, and eliminates the repeat service call. What the industry did instead. In 2003, 3 major pest control franchise networks introduced pantry pest prevention plans, quarterly service contracts at $89 per visit. The service consists of inspecting the pantry, applying pyrethrin aerosol to pantry corners, and recommending airtight containers. The bay leaf protocol, documented for 60 years at that point, does not appear in any of these plans. 3 conditions in every untreated pantry guarantee that larvae from purchased packaging will establish. Temperature above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the hatching threshold for Indian meal moth eggs. A heated pantry in any season above 50 degrees Fahrenheit converts eggs present in grain packaging into active larvae within 14 to 30 days of purchase. Paper packaging. Standard flour, oat, and grain packaging is paper or thin plastic film. Neither material is an egg barrier. Adult moths lay eggs on the exterior of packaging at the retail store or warehouse. The eggs survive transit. They hatch after purchase. Airtight glass or polypropylene containers with gasket lids are the only physical barrier. Aging stock. The longer a grain product sits in a pantry above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, the longer the egg-to-larvae conversion window runs. Pantry management disciplines. First in, first out rotation, quarterly discarding of products older than 6 months. Eliminate the aging stock reservoir that sustains every established pantry pest population. The honest limitation. If your pantry lacks temperature control and sits above 70 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, combining the bay leaf protocol with a small refrigerator for long-term grain storage eliminates the temperature variable entirely. 3 steps, 1 per vulnerability. Step 1. Freeze every grain products before shelving it. Every bag of flour, rice, oats, cornmeal, pasta, dried beans, or pet food that enters your home, place it in the freezer for 72 hours before bringing it to the pantry. At temperatures below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, all insect egg stages, including Indian meal moth, weevil, and grain beetle eggs, are killed within 48 hours. 72 hours provides the margin. This single step eliminates the source of every new pantry pest introduction. Step 2. Transfer all grain products from paper or plastic film packaging into airtight glass or polypropylene containers with gasket lids. Place 1 dried bay leaf inside each container, resting on the surface of the grain. Replace bay leaves every 6 months. 1/8-centennial volatilization rate decreases as the leaf dries further. Bay leaves cost 67 cents per shelf per year. Step 3. Food-grade diatomaceous earth along the rear edge of every pantry shelf. Any larvae that hatch from a container breach or a missed product encounter DE before they can access adjacent containers. Combined annual cost, 67 cents. 1 bag of bay leaves per year. Stored food pest control generates $2.1 billion annually. The tolerance number that explains every pantry pest infestation has been legal, documented, and unprinted for 81 years. Open your oldest bag of flour tonight. Look at the interior surface near the fold seams for silk webbing or small white worms. Tell me in the comments what you find, and how old the product is. Every freezer step is 1 fewer $312 fumigation call. That is what this channel exists to do. Next video. Fleas in your yard are the source that keeps your indoor protocol from working permanently. The $3 liquid that eliminates them from the soil has been GRAS classified since 1988. The pest control industry keeps it in the refrigerated section of the garden center, away from the pest control aisle, for a reason I want to show you.